Hello, it's Maggie, the Cheshire Crafter here. I've uploaded a few videos looking at the creation of a patchwork throw for my friend who's going to be 90 later this month. And I set myself two challenges. One, to create a patchwork throw for somebody who's registered blind. And the second was to see whether I could complete the topper and whether I could complete the whole throw using my vintage hand-cranked Singer sewing machine. And the answer is, I've done both, I think. Let me show you the throw and let me tell you how I managed to complete it. So I'm quilting using my bed. I'm using a technique I use when I'm on my own, and I roll the quilt down. I'm using a sheet the same as the sheet at front for backing. I'm using a polyester wadding, and I'm using my quilting pins, and I'm quilting and pinning and rolling it down the bed. I've allowed at least 4 inches either side for the wadding and backing fabric. Be generous with your pins. And I'm just going to cut with a pair of scissors, so I cut away the excess fabric. If you've watched part 1, you'll see that I was talking about whether or not I'd be able to quilt using this machine. I completed the topper using this vintage hand-cranked machine. I've been able to add a walking foot, and my question is, can I fit the quilt in the space? The space is actually very tight between the feet, the bottom of the walking foot and the presser plate. And the second thing is, I need my right hand to crank the machine. Can I do this one-handed? I'll have a go and see. I've loaded up my bobbins. I've got a spare bobbin, and let's see what happens. I've got mercerised cotton, which means a strengthened cotton, and I've changed to a jeans needle as well as the walking foot to quilt from the inside edge of the inner border here outside the sashing. So I'm going to not stitch in the ditch, but stitch next to the ditch across, and I'm going to start from the middle of the quilt across the width and work outwards. I've rolled it 2 sides so it'll fit underneath my machine. Well, it fits. There's certainly room beneath the walking foot for the quilt, so I've got quite thin wadding here. It's polyester wadding. I've got backing sheet and the topper sheet, so it will fit between the walking foot, which is the first thing I was concerned about. And I've been able to get sufficient of the quilt rolled up underneath the machine itself. It's now a question of, can I do a straight line, trying to guide it with one hand while I've got one hand on the machine? And I can't video at the same time, so I'm going to test it and I'm going to let you know. The answer is yes, it will. I need to spread this hand out, but actually I'm holding what I would normally hold with my right hand to guide it a little bit with my outstretched thumb. Yes, I'm managing to sew about 2 inches at a time before I need to reposition. It's going to be very slow and arduous, but I'm not in any hurry. I added this LED strip light in, and it's making a great deal of difference with the visibility right at the point of the needle. It's really helpful. It's always worth checking the tension on the back before you proceed any further, and I'm happy with that. I am finding the extension table is helping a great deal in just taking the weight and helping hold this flat. I'm now just working from the middle outwards towards the bottom of the quilt, and I'm now going to sew on the inside of this sashing. This is Sunday afternoon quilting. As I get more confident, I'm able to complete about 3 inches at a time before I move my hand. Now that the widths are completed, I'm going to go down the length, starting from the centre and working out to the right and then to the left. And now I'm sewing the inside edge of the outer border. You can see, if you look closely on this, how much lint there is from the wadding that's come off. And if you look really closely at the walking foot, you can see a built-up of lint there. So I must be very careful to clean my machine, around my needle, the walking foot, and inside the bobbin and the bobbin case once I've completed this project. And I'll go over the whole of this quilt with a lint roller. Now it's ready for me to trim off the edges, and I'm going to do that with my 12-inch ruler. I'm thinking of buying myself a 24-inch one as a treat for my birthday that's coming up in April. So I'm going to do that with my rotary cutter around the edge on all sides. I'll use the excess cotton and wadding in future projects. Nothing gets wasted. I've changed my thread colour now to red because I'm now adding the binding. I'm using a bias binding for this, and I'm sewing it about 1/2 inch away from the edge to make sure that I fill the binding with some of the edging. I'm going to turn it over. Once I've done the last stitching on this, this is the last machine stitching I'll be doing. The rest of it will be completed by hand. I've covered some plastic buttons with the same red velvet that I used for the heart, and I'm going to use these for quilting inside the patchwork hourglass shape. The 3 pieces of hand stitching I can do while I'm watching the television, and that includes finishing off and tying in the loose threads, hand stitching the binding on the reverse, and adding a velvet button in the centre of the patchwork, and that will be my quilting. It's about 3 inches apart, and I think that's sufficient to hold that quilting securely in place. And I'm just cleaning it with a lint roller to remove all the lint that's come from the wadding before I add the velvet buttons. Now the buttons are stitched on, the last thing to do is overstitch the binding at the edge of the quilt so that it doesn't show through on the front. So there we have it. The finished quilt is 40 by 72, and it took me 3 weeks to complete on the hand sewing machine and then by hand. I was waiting for some of the buttons by post to arrive. Shall we take a look a bit closer? The velvet buttons, I think, help the patchwork pop. I've already shown you the little heart on the front. On the reverse, the quilting is simple. The buttons in the centre add a little bit of quilting on the back. It's actually soft and quite pliable. When I send the message, she might not be able to watch this YouTube video, but she'll certainly be able to listen to it. So, with love, I'm going to say, happy 90th birthday, Jean. I hope you enjoy this quilt. I've enjoyed making it for you and making the video about it. And I hope it gives you many years of pleasure. From Maggie, the Cheshire Crafter. Bye for now. Come back and see me soon, won't you, for more crafting.